Welcome to the 13th episode of the second season of The Pulpiteer. I'm your host, Eric Hepburn, and I'm glad to have you join us for today's episode. Today's episode's called Compassionate Generosity. Now, sometimes a conversation with a congregant after service prompts me to begin with a caveat, and so it is this week. Someone let me know that they felt outside of the circle of presumed safety I drew with my words in the service. If that's you too, if the realities of your life are such that the presumed safety I describe feels alien to you, I have two simple messages to temper this episode for you. First, I see you, and you are worthy of safety, worthy of care, worthy of belonging. Second, what do you need from yourself, from your family or friends, from your community or church, from your municipality or state or nation? What do you need right now so that you can live into that worthiness? Whatever that is, ask. Please, just ask. Okay, let's get started with our word of wisdom delivered by Heather McCare.
Together we listen for wisdom in the words of Pema Chodron. Let us enter a still space within, opening our hearts and minds to receive this voice of wisdom. After the words are spoken, we will breathe together in silence, preparing ourselves for the word unfolding among us. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity.
Please remain in a quiet space. We're going to do a guided metta meditation this morning, so please repeat quietly after me. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be peaceful and at ease. Now I want you to hold someone in your heart, in your mind's eye, and we're going to say it for them. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you be peaceful and at ease. Now I want you to try to open your awareness as broadly as you can. Maybe just the people you can sense around you, maybe this room, maybe all of creation. May all be happy. May all be well. May all be safe. May all be peaceful and at ease. Amen and namaste. From breath to word, from silence to speech, we enter into the unfolding in word. I'll be honest with you, I've struggled this week because I promised I would give a very positive sermon on gratitude and compassion. And it's been hard for me to maintain a positive affect this week. I was glad to hear Lou share the news that there may be an end to some of the hostilities that are going on. I hope some of you saw the link that we sent out in the messenger this week to the Steve Hartman videos. Some heartwarming stories of kindness and compassion, of little things that we can do to and for one another to bring some joy into what can be a difficult time. So I'm going to start real, and then we'll work towards joyful gratitude. I got stuck on the myth of scarcity. The myth of not enoughness. It's so pervasive, isn't it? You see a person on the street who's clearly hungrier than you, less resourced than you, but there's something that holds us back from doing that act of generosity with any significant frequency. Or maybe we'll talk about me. I won't assume. Maybe some of you are the kind of people who keep something in the pocket for that so that you do practice that with frequency. I don't want to presume that about you. But the underlying idea that there's probably not enough to go around, and what's going to happen to me if I get low, that fear short circuits so much of the generosity that is asking us to show up to it. And so I just got into this place where I started to see how pervasive it was, the story that there's not enough, the story that we don't have enough, the story that not everybody deserves the lifestyle that many of us in this room enjoy. Because isn't that what we're saying? When we know that the productive capacity of the earth is adequate to the task, but we choose methods and modes of production and distribution that don't make sure everyone has enough to eat, aren't we saying that they're not worth it? I know we have other stories we tell ourselves about why it's okay. But I don't think there are any of those stories that don't find their deep ground, their footing, their foundation in this myth of scarcity. So let's flip the myth of scarcity over and talk about its opposite, which I would like to call the truth of abundance. Sounds too good to believe in, doesn't it? Doesn't it some days, just sound too good to believe in? The idea that there really is enough, and that sharing and cooperation could be enough without the fighting, without the competition, without all of that. It sounds like one of those utopian dreams that we think couldn't possibly be for real. So there's an adventure program called Outward Bound, and it's a fascinating program, but I bring it up because their motto is really interesting. It's become important to me in how I parent, and I think it relates to building a bridge between the myth of scarcity and the truth of abundance. So their motto goes something like this: if you can't get out of it, get into it. If you're stuck in a situation and you can't get out of it, you better find a way to go deeper, right? And then, as a matter of course, that's what they do in their programs. They construct situations that you can't get out of so that you can learn about yourself, that you're capable of more than you thought you were. One of my favorite authors tells a story of being on an Outward Bound program and halfway down a cliff and just losing it, just freaking out, hanging there, rope dangling down, way too far above the ground to jump. And the guide comes down next to him and says, well, you can't get out of it. You better find a way to get into it. So the way I translate this in my parenting is, you're going to find what you look for. You're going to find what you're looking for. If you're looking for a way out, that's all you're going to see. If you're looking for a way in, that's what you're going to see. If you're looking for scarcity, if you're looking for reasons to be afraid, if you're looking for reasons to keep your food in your fridge and your money in your wallet, you're going to find those reasons that you're looking for. We are really outstanding pattern recognition machines. That's what that hunk of meat is for. And it's real good at it. You're going to find what you're looking for. In psychology, we have a name for this called confirmation bias. One of the most powerful psychological effects there is confirmation bias. We are like 7 times more attentive to stories that we hear that support how we already think about the world than we are to stories that challenge our belief system. 7x is a pretty powerful multiplier. It'll get you through a good day of bird watching with binoculars, 7x multiplier. So, if you're looking for reasons to be afraid and reasons why you can't be generous, that's what you're going to find. Here's what I suggest to you. Looking for the other thing on purpose is not an act of naivete. It's an act of courage. It's an act of courage to decide to look for the bounty in yourself, in the world, and in the people you meet. It is an act of courage to do that. Because when you do that, you're inviting trust. You're inviting trust. And the definition of trust is to put something you care about deeply in the hands of another. To open yourself up to being injured or wounded or let down or disappointed. But without it, we don't get the trust. And without the trust, we can't live the abundance. And it's out there. I wrote a paper for my doctoral program this week on Nelson Mandela. Now, Nelson, and it was about spirituality in social movements, is the concept that we're going for. Now, most people, when they talk about the anti-apartheid movement, they talk about Archbishop Desmond Tutu in the South African Council of Churches, because that's real obviously religious and therefore spiritual. And Nelson Mandela didn't belong to a church. He didn't have anything that he thought of in his own life as spiritual practices. But after reading about him, I found the following things true. I've spoken to you before about the importance of spiritual practices, about things that we do in our life that help us get and be centered. Whether that's meditation, prayer, yoga, exercise, whatever it is in your life that helps you feel present and grounded and here. the things that make you feel capable of looking for abundance instead of scarcity. Those things in your life are spiritual practices. And Mandela's spiritual practice, now for 18 years, he was in a forced hard labor prison camp. And he woke up an hour early every day to exercise. Now, folks, that's not about fitness. He was about to go out and break rocks or gather seaweed or do all these other hard labor tasks for 12 hours most days. Why is he exercising for 45 minutes to an hour every morning? Because breaking rocks wasn't the real work he was doing there. He was using that technique, that spiritual technique, to metabolize the mistreatment, to metabolize the trauma, so that he could build a well of compassion large enough to lead a movement into a healthy post-racial South Africa. That was the work he was doing. The work he was doing was building rapport and common human decency connection with the guards who most days would prefer to abuse him. And so I went looking to understand where that spiritual and moral depth came from. And I found spiritual practices, and I found these beautiful gifts that he gave to communities who deeply believed they could never be reconciled. During the time of apartheid, the black community in South Africa was around 70% of the population. They had no voting rights. They were forced to live in settlements, which are essentially the equivalent of like reservations in the Native American system in the United States. They had almost no social political rights. Apartheid was the law of the land, and it actually meant that everything that happened in the Jim Crow South was actually on the books law, not just social practice. So, after decades and decades of abuse, the black South Africans really didn't believe that they could be reconciled with the whites. And the whites who had done all that harming, who had murdered and imprisoned and stole land and stole labor, they didn't believe that it was possible to reconcile either. They couldn't believe that revenge, that there was a possibility for a solution that didn't include revenge for the bad things that they and their predecessors had done. They couldn't imagine that that was true. But that was the gift of abundance that Nelson Mandela gave to both groups. He made them believe that forgiveness was possible. When meeting with the leaders of the white South African government, including the security service, he said, "No, I want revenge, but there's something I want more. And that's to live in a world without fear and with justice." And if we take revenge on you, we are going to be in the same position that you're in now. I have seen throughout my life how much you fear us, how much the white South Africans fear the black South Africans, and it has made you a cruel and unjust people. And if we respond with revenge, that is exactly what's going to happen to us. We are going to become a cruel and unjust people. So peace and forgiveness is our only way out of this. And he was able to make enough people on both sides believe that that was possible. that they were able to have a free election, to have a truth and reconciliation process where people admitted the horrible things they had done on both sides, the murders and the harms. Healing might not be easy, but it is one of the most beautiful things. Forgiveness isn't easy, but it's one of the most beautiful things. Little acts of kindness and compassion are sometimes hard to pull off, but when we see them, they are among the most beautiful things. I don't know, but I have this deep feeling that gratitude and compassion are two sides of the same coin, because the things that make me feel grateful in human interactions, they always start there. They always start with an acknowledgement of a need or a shared humanity and an act of kindness. I know it's hard to believe that we still have a chance to leave our children the kind of world they deserve. It's hard to believe that's true some days. It's hard to believe 8 months into this presidency, or 9, that after 3.5 more years of this, we still have hope of doing that. There's no scarcity of bad news. There's no scarcity of people on the television and the internet telling you how awful everything is. But here's the unseen truth of abundance. Just like in the Steve Harvey videos that we shared with y'all, there's actually an abundance of kindness happening, much more overwhelming than all that bad stuff. There are wars in 2 countries. Anybody remember how many countries there are? There are people who are hungry, and there are more people who are fed. It is this 7x multiplier that I talked about. It's not just confirmation bias. It's also describes our heightened sensitivity to bad news. Very clear in all the psychology research that we are 7 times more sensitive to threatening bad news than we are to good, joyful news. What does that mean? How do we translate that into this scarcity abundance equation, and how do we let it inform how we show up? One way is to realize that however bad you think things are, it's probably 1/7 that bad. It's probably 1/7 that bad. It's another reason why, from my point of view, looking for the positive and looking for the abundance as a life strategy isn't naive. It's intellectually informed. My body, all on its own, is going to look for the bad stuff. It's going to look for the threats. I have to be intentional about looking for the abundance. I have to be intentional about looking for the little acts of kindness between people that remind me that there are way more of us treating each other with compassion and kindness every day than there are people out there trying to take advantage of other people. People convinced that if they don't take other people's things, they're not going to have enough. How many people tried to murder you on your drive-in this morning? If your number is anything but 0, please come see me after the service. You might have some trauma that we can process together, but I'm going to go out on a limb that everybody here gets to answer 0 to that question for this morning and yesterday, last week, last month, the last year. Nobody tried to murder you. Lots of opportunities. There you were, wallet in hand at the grocery store. Nobody decided that your wallet was worth more than you. There is an inherent intrinsic trust every day that we take for granted about each other's goodness. But it's easy to just overlook, isn't it? It's easy to just look past it and not see it, and then see the headline on the TV on the wall instead and think, oh man, the world's really going to a bad place. It's real bad out there. Before I got this job, I was unemployed for about 3 out of 5 years. I was in one of them midlife crisis life transition things. And most of those days, I would go and look for something to read or listen to or watch that was about the stuff that I talk to you guys about all day or every Sunday, because that was the stuff I was interested in. That was what I wanted to do with my energy and my time. And in those 3 years of probably doing research like this 5 to 6 days a week, I never ran out. There wasn't a single day in those hundreds of days where I didn't find more good news than I had time to digest that day. People out there talking about how to take your compassion deeper to the next level. People talking about how to take the most recent science of biology or psychology or sociology and to turn it into new tools for being better neighbors and better colleagues and better friends and better spouses and lovers. Every day, hundreds of days, I looked. And every day I found more good news than I could read. And it hasn't stopped yet. I had this job, but I get to keep doing that search. So I've been in this pulpit for almost 2 years. And every week, it's not all good news, mind you. I've read some tough books about the prison system and other things. It's not all good news, but the people who wrote those books, they're not surfacing hard truths out of a sense of trying to make things worse. They're saying, hey, we have to honestly own the way we are if we're going to get better. You can feel that spirit in the work when you read it, that there's a hopefulness, a faithfulness underlying it all, that we might be worth saving. I mean, as a species, that we might be worth it. I choose to think that we are. I choose abundance. I choose to look for the little acts of kindness, and I do my best to try to practice them, although I still have some work to do on that front. So what I want to invite you into as part of being in this community is the idea that maybe the bad stuff is about 1/7 as bad as it seems. Because if we're integrating the science and the spirituality together, that's what the science suggests. And if we actually pay attention not to the fear-inducing broadcasts, but to our own life every day, what proportion of goodness and kindness and stability and people just getting on with their day. For every one car that cuts you off in traffic, you drove peacefully with hundreds. But that's not what you tell your neighbor when you get home or your spouse. You're like going to talk about that one person who cut you off in traffic today. Can't believe people are so terrible. I can't believe that 1,000 people drove on the interstate with you and 999 of them were kind and appropriate and compassionate in their driving skills. And all you want to do is talk about that one person. What's wrong with you? No. You all know shame is not a social justice tool. Shame is not a social justice tool. So let me ask it this way. What's wrong with us? Nothing that can't be fixed by what's right with us. There is nothing wrong with us that can't be fixed by what's right with us. So I invite you this week to become thoughtful and reflective and mindful about what you're looking for. Because whatever it is, you're going to find it. And I think I'm going to see a lot more smiles this time 2 weeks from now when I'm back in the pulpit. I think I'll see a lot more smiles, a lot more joy coming out. If you decide that you're going to look for abundance and compassion and kindness and generosity as a practice that you do every day. And I want that for you because I don't want you to live in a false world where you're scared all the time when you ought not be. I want you to live in a world where you're surrounded by loving neighbors every day because it's true. Just look around. And that wasn't a euphemism. Look around. You're still looking at me. Look around at each other. You are in a room with a bunch of people who are not going to try and kill you or take advantage of you. If you're in a hard spot, they're going to pray for your healing. If you need to cry, they're going to sit with you, hold your hand or your shoulder, and just be there with you. What a blessing. What a blessing that is to know that, that is really most of life, not just inside this building, but everywhere today. Every family in a church, out of a church, they're mostly going to love each other today. Now, sure, somebody's going to get triggered and they're going to play out some old trauma. That's going to happen too. But it's just not most of it, folks. And convincing yourself otherwise is just a recipe for disillusionment and distraction and depression. And I think you deserve better than that. I don't just think it. I know it in my heart and I feel it in my bones that we all deserve better than that. There's nothing wrong with us that can't be fixed by what's right with us. Amen. Until next time, thank you for joining us on The Pulpiteer. If you enjoyed the podcast, you can help others find it by liking and subscribing. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can make a donation at sangabrieluu.org/give. The Pulpiteer podcast is a production of the San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Georgetown, Texas. The podcast is hosted by Spotify, and theme music is by John Faber. Our live recording tech crew this week was Frank Sanders, Rob Berthold, Keith Hutchinson, and Andrea McDaniel. The podcast is produced and performed by Eric Hepburn. See you in 2 weeks.